morning, Kuhner country. Okay, my friends. A lot of news over the weekend, and we're going to cover all of it, I promise. But the story now that is closest to us here in the United States, obviously in New England, but really it's a massive national story, is the mass shooting that took place Saturday at about 4:20 p.m. at Brown University in Rhode Island, in Providence, Rhode Island. Full disclosure, I live about maybe 20 minutes away from Providence. So this has affected me and my family in a stronger way than many other stories. We go to Providence quite often. There's some excellent pizza there. The kids love there's some great pizzerias in Providence, and we do a little bit of shopping there, and we even have some friends in the Providence area. So this has shocked us, as it's shocked many people in Rhode Island and across Massachusetts and really across New England and the country. At 4:20 p.m. on Saturday, Brown University, which is an Ivy League institution, they were now going through the final rounds of final exams, and the last few remaining classes of the year. An individual dressed completely in black, wearing a black mask, came in through the engineering building and then began to empty his gun into a crowd of students who were studying for an economics final exam. It was a study review session that the teaching assistant was leading it, not the professor, and I'm going to get to the professor in a second, because the professor plays a key role in potentially unraveling what happened. The teaching assistant was there answering questions. Out of the blue, this madman came in and shot up the auditorium, the classroom. 2 are dead, 9 wounded, 1 in very critical condition. Now, first question, why was the building completely open and unlocked? Usually you need a pass or a card or whatever to access buildings, a student card, an administration card, whatever. No, the door was completely unlocked. This madman was just able to literally open the door, walk in freely, and boom, 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 boom. That's question number 1. Question number 2, the perpetrator escaped almost immediately. He came in, and he's described as a man in his 20s or early 30s. That's what they said. He's a man dressed completely in black who shouted something as he started to shoot inside the classroom. And I'm going to get to that as well in a second. He then escaped. Now, the video footage cameras, the surveillance cameras, caught him as he escaped on the main Hope Street, which is the big part of Brown University, on the sidewalk. So they caught him leaving the building. Now, they apparently arrested what they called a person of interest at about 3:45 in the morning, very early Sunday morning in Coventry, Rhode Island, at a Hampton Inn. The alleged person of interest was an individual named Benjamin Erickson, 24 years old, from Wisconsin. According to police, they believed they had their man. They said that he drove all the way from Wisconsin, which is over 1,000 miles, to perpetrate this crime. They said, we don't know what his motive would have been, but we're working on it. They said they found 2 guns in his hotel room. One of them was a laser-guided gun that they said was almost identical to the gun used at the shooting at Brown University. Kash Patel started to do a victory lap. The mayor, the Moonbat mayor of Providence, started to do a victory lap. Local police, that incompetent police chief, started to do a local victory lap. Apparently, Benjamin Erickson served, 3 years in the military. He worked at Arlington National Cemetery. He apparently provided security work and helped with burials. But there was something wrong. Nothing seemed to add up. Everybody who knew him said, no, he has no mental health issues whatsoever. Why would a man who's from Wisconsin, apparently living in Washington, D.C., now want to go all the way to Brown University and shoot up a school? It makes no sense. Then there were mixed evidence coming out that some said, well, he was maybe a student at Brown. Others said he wasn't a student at Brown. And then they released him. I'm not kidding. They released him. They released him and they said, oops, we got the wrong man. This wasn't the guy, after telling us he was the guy. And so now they say they're still looking for the perpetrator and the criminal. Now, a couple of points. Okay, 617-266-6868 is the number. Number one, they still haven't caught the perpetrator, allegedly, of this mass shooting. Why? This is the question. In all seriousness, why? Brown University has an endowment of over $8 billion and growing. It is phenomenally wealthy. Students pay tuition between $70,000 to $100,000 a year. And yet they're telling us that they don't have any surveillance camera video footage from inside that engineering building. No surveillance footage of the hallway, no surveillance footage of the classroom, no surveillance footage of anything this perpetrator did once he entered that engineering building. Now, just stand back for a second. You're one of the wealthiest institutions and universities in America, and you don't have surveillance cameras? Or suddenly, conveniently, what? They're all not working? I don't believe it. I don't believe it. I don't believe it. Okay? They're hiding something. To me, it's clear they're hiding something. Now, this leads me to my second point. Multiple witnesses now, and I said this on X last night, multiple witnesses. Now, the local Providence media, which is just as bad as the local Boston media, they're as leftist, as pro-Democrat, as woke, as corrupt as the media in Boston. They are shills for the Democratic Party. They are not honest journalists. They have not reported this. The national media has, to their credit. Witnesses in the classroom say that they heard the shooter yell, Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar. Before the shooting began. And so, the question now is the media, is Brown University, are they now engaging in a cover-up? Because they don't like the narrative that this shooting potentially will tell. That this was potentially an Islamic terrorist attack. And I go back now to the professor. The professor is Jewish. In fact, she has taught at the Hebrew University in Israel for 4 years. She runs the Judaic Studies program at Brown University. So, the professor being Jewish, she was supposed to be at that class at the last moment for whatever reason. The TA said she couldn't make it, so the TA stepped in and answered all the questions for this final exam review session. But the fact of the matter is, the teacher is Jewish. The teacher has taught in Israel. The teacher runs the Judaic Studies program. In other words, was this another anti-Semitic terrorist attack? Because just a few hours later, in Sydney, Australia, I'm not saying the two are connected, but in Sydney, Australia, and Bondi Beach, famous Bondi Beach, at a celebration of the first night of Hanukkah, two Islamist madmen, two Islamic terrorists, gunned down and murdered 15 Jews, including a rabbi and a 12-year-old girl, and injured 40. And I'm going to get to this later. This was a modern-day pogrom, what you saw in Australia. 6:20 now on the great WRKO. Jeff Kuhner, Boston's bulldozer. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, you can text the Kuhner Man, 70470. This is from Marianne on Messenger. Jeff, I have a hard time believing that Brown University doesn't have surveillance cameras all over the place, with kids of the political elite going there, with kids of the Hollywood elite attending. I don't believe it. Not to mention, and by the way, this is so true, Providence has cameras everywhere, on practically every street. Absolutely everywhere. Now, we know that Providence, hell, the entire state of Rhode Island, is nothing but a cesspool of liberal BS. I'm honestly embarrassed sometimes to say it's my home state. Well, you're in Florida now, Marianne, so you're safe. But no, look, I go to Providence quite often. The cameras everywhere, absolutely everywhere, and Brown University is the most camera-ridden place in the entire state. So for them to come out and say, and that's why the national media is, dumbstruck, dumbfounded. They're like, what? When the police chief said, no, we have no video surveillance footage of anything that happened inside. And the media was like, but that's almost impossible. What do you mean you have no footage? Oh, we have no footage. And they're like, what, the cameras aren't working? What, there weren't cameras? And they're staying mum. The governor's being silent. The president of Brown University is being silent. That hack, the local police chief, is being silent. So to me, it's obvious they're covering up something. They're hiding something. Because I don't believe it. Nobody believes it. Okay, that's number one. Number two, Benjamin Erickson. Remember Richard Jewell? The 1996, they accused him of the 1996 bombings at the Atlanta Olympics. And it turned out he was a patsy. And they completely destroyed this man's life by falsely smearing him and accusing him of committing those terrorist attacks. This is now pretty much what they've done now to Benjamin Erickson. They took a guy who served in the military, in the infantry, who apparently takes online classes at the University of Wisconsin in Madison, and they tried to claim that this was the guy who, for whatever reason, because they couldn't give us a motive, drove over 1,000 miles to Providence, Rhode Island, to target this specific building, this specific class, this specific students. These specific students. And for why? They don't know. They don't know. And now they've had to admit we got the wrong guy. So what is very clear to me, and I thought Sandy has been making a great point on this all morning, they so don't want it to be an Islamic terrorist or a trans terrorist or a left-wing terrorist or whatever narrative they want to push. They so don't want it to be that. They said, white guy in the military, go get him. Let's follow that lead. Let's get him. Let's get him. Now, who's going to give him his reputation back? How is he going to get his good name back? because his name was blasted all over, forget the country, the world. He was the, quote, suspect. He was the, quote, person of interest. He was the one who allegedly did it. And now, oops, we're sorry. They're engaging in a cover-up. And why is the local media in Providence in particular, but frankly the entire liberal media, why aren't they saying and reporting that the witnesses in the classroom and near the classroom said, we heard it distinctly. He shouted, Allahu Akbar. Now, look, the guy doesn't have to be a Muslim terrorist to shout Allahu Akbar. He could just be crazy. He could just be deranged. He could just be a guy, oh, this is really cool, let me do it. But let's be honest, if he shouts Allahu Akbar and he dresses like a Muslim terrorist, all in black, with a black mask, chances are it could be an Islamic terrorist. They don't want that narrative to come out, especially in the wake now of what just happened in Australia. So, listen now to this moonbat mayor of Providence. I'd be embarrassed to have this guy as my mayor. I'm serious. Roll cut 10, Mike.
Our investigation into this horrific act remains ongoing. It has been ongoing. And I know there's been some frustration from members of the community and others about the language that we've been using about the person of interest and such, and that speaks to directly the fact that this investigation was and continues ongoing, and we will continue to endeavor to not confirm any information that is not yet confirmable.
Well, that's what you guys did.
And that is how we can best be transparent with all the members of our community to share the best information that we have.
Look, by the way, I also hate the term person of interest. It's a vague term. It's a malleable term. I think ultimately it's a cop-out term. Either you have a suspect in custody, or you don't. That's it. That's it. No. In their haste to try to show this was not an Islamic terrorist attack. Okay, so they're bungling the investigation. There's no question. They're covering up the fact that there's no video surveillance footage, which begs the question, why? Why? Listen now, and these are all Democrats, by the way. The mayor's a Dem, the governor's a Dem, the attorney general is a Dem, and it's stupid, stupider, and even stupider. Okay, that's what you're getting now. It's like the Keystone Cops. So, here they roll out this attorney general. So they got the wrong guy. They had a person of interest, Benjamin Erickson, poor guy now. They've destroyed his life. This is going to haunt him now, like Richard Jewell, for the rest of his life. So they roll out the attorney general. By the way, the people at Brown are livid. The community in Providence is livid because that means there's still a mass shooter out there. So, again, a false sense of security. They roll him out. Now, listen to this, okay? Just listen to this. Roll cut 12A, a mic.
Collectively, the team developed leads in a number of areas. Yep. One was chased to ground. It led to us detaining a person of interest. And so those words and how we choose those words when we're talking about an investigation matter. And what it means here is that certainly there was some degree of evidence that pointed to this individual, but that evidence needed to be corroborated and confirmed. And over the last 24 hours, leading into just very, very recently, that evidence now points in a different direction.
So shut up! This is unbelievable. So we had a guy, we thought it was the guy. Here, let me just give it to you in plain English. We had a guy, we thought he was the guy, we broke into his hotel. By the way, it was SWAT team after SWAT team after SWAT team with CNN on the scene. This is at 3:45 in the morning, Sunday morning. They tipped off CNN so they could look good for the cameras, okay? CNN. And so they haul out, and by the way, let's be honest, He's a white male military guy. The perfect patsy for this. Oh, transgender? Nyet. Islamic? Muslim? Nyet. No. Some crazy leftist? No. No. So they rolled this guy out, and we got him. Press conference after press conference. The evidence came together. I want to thank Kash Patel, the FBI. I want to thank everybody for their assistance. Now, all of a sudden, you have a guy, you have to corroborate, and then the evidence just takes you in a completely different direction. What changed in the last 24 hours? What new evidence? There wasn't any. You were so desperate to find anybody who's not a Muslim or who's not transgender. And the first possible lead you had, that it could be a white guy, you all jumped all over it. And you don't give a damn now that this poor man's reputation and probably his life is going to be ruined. Okay? So anyway, let that go. So now, because remember, we can't just be honest in this country. It's not enough to say we are sorry. 2 students are dead. 9 students are wounded. 1 may not even make it. Let's not jump to conclusions. Let's follow the evidence, follow the facts, and yes, follow the eyewitness testimony. If you've got multiple people who were there in the room as the place was being shot up and nearby in the adjacent classroom, and they say they heard Allahu Akbar, I think the public deserves to know that. It would help with the investigation. If he's dressed like a Muslim terrorist, if he talks like a Muslim terrorist, if he acts like a Muslim terrorist, call me crazy? Maybe you have a Muslim terrorist? I'm not saying he is. I'm saying the possibility is very real. But they want to suppress that. Now, right away, the bodies weren't even freaking cold. You had students that were barricading themselves on lockdown inside Brown, in their dorm rooms, across the entire campus, even in the neighboring communities, because they thought the shooter was still out there at the time. So they're on lockdown. Many of them petrified for their very lives. Traumatized. I mean, this is am I going to be shot next? Is there somebody roaming the halls looking to shoot me in the head, or any other student? And then there's Chris Murphy, Democrat senator from Connecticut, runs to "This is CNN." And guess who he blames it on? Take a guess. Who do you think ultimately bears responsibility for the massacre at Brown? You guessed it. A Trump. Donald Trump. Evil orange man. Roll cut 16. A Mike.
Many of the weapons that are used in our states for gun crimes come to our states from those states that have an ability for criminals and people with serious mental illness to buy weapons. So what we know is that stronger laws do work. And since we passed that bill in 2022, the first bill in 30 years that strengthens the nation's gun laws, gun violence rates and mass shooting rates have come down in this country. But this is not shocking, because over the last year, President Trump has been engaged in a dizzying campaign to increase violence in this country. He is restoring gun rights to felons and people who have lost their ability to buy guns. He eliminated the White House Office of Gun Violence Protection, and he has stopped funding mental health grants and community anti-gun violence grants that Republicans and Democrats supported in that 2022 bill. So he has been engaged in a pretty deliberate campaign to try to make violence more likely in this country. And I think you're unfortunately going to see the results of that on the streets of America.
Yeah, sure. Of course. He wants mass shootings. Yeah, of course. Yeah. This guy's mentally ill. No, I'm sorry. He's a mentally ill man. Trump is responsible for what happened at Brown University? Like, dude, are you serious? Are you right in the head? You have to politicize now the death of 2 students and 9 wounded? You have to, so you have no sense of decency whatsoever? You piece of you know what? You POS? By the way, no state has more stricter gun control laws than Rhode Island. A lot of good it did there. Did you notice all of Brown University is a gun-free zone? I guess the shooter missed the signs that said gun-free zone. And by the way, where were the police? I'm talking the campus police. Where were they? Notice how many times in these shootings, the police, and I'm not blaming the police because they have to react, but the liberals keep going on about, see, then they like the police. When it comes to taking away people's guns, then, well, the police should handle this. Well, first of all, you want to defund them, and you say they're irredeemably racist. So, can I get it straight from you once and for all? Do you want them defunded? Are they racist? Or are they heroes and people that are pillars of the community and pillars of public safety? Which is it? Take a pick. But it's always too late. It's always too late. Now, they went from blaming Trump, which is so stupid it's not even funny, to now the guns. They always want to grab the guns. It's always the guns. The guns. The guns. Like a bunch of rabid dogs. The guns, the guns, the guns, the guns, the guns. This is USC women's basketball coach. She's holding a press conference. Lindsay Gottlieb. Mike, do we have time to play the cut? Mike? Do we have time to play the cut? Okay. So anyway, no, she's supposed to be talking about basketball, but no. Like every crazy moonbat, gun control. In the wake of the shooting at Brown, it's the guns. Grab the guns. We don't know the motive. We don't even have the identity of the shooter. Okay, couple lines are open if you want to jump on. Let me just play one more clip, and then I want to go to the blazing phone lines. So this is Lindsay Gottlieb. She is the coach of the University of Southern California's women's basketball team. She's at a press conference, and like every moonbat, I mean, it's just, we don't even have the killer yet. We haven't even captured the mass shooter yet. And already, Brown University, blame the guns. Roll cut 17. Mike.
Before we start, I came out from the game and had a million text messages about a mass shooting at my alma mater, Brown. So that's hard. Doesn't need to be this way. Sending thoughts and prayers to my teammates who have kids there, to the parents who have to worry about their children. I'm just going to end it with that, but just to say we're the only country that lives this way. The college football cycle has been in the news a million times, and are we going to report about this? Like, it's the guns. We're the only country that lives this way. Parents should not have to worry about their kids. I have a teammate who has a daughter who is in the basement of a library because they don't know what's going on there, and she's flying there tomorrow. So just wanted to start with that because I would be remiss if I didn't mention that's going on, and hopefully everyone, is safe and praying for peace for those who've lost people. And that's that. It's more important than basketball.
Politicize the dead.
We can all be better, right, with that.
Yeah, politicize the dead. The bodies aren't even cold. The students are still hiding in lockdown. She didn't even know at this time whether the shooter was still active on campus. But no, the guns. It's the guns. It's the guns. You got to grab the guns. It's the guns. Now, to show, and she's a woke idiot. Literally, have you not heard of what happened in Australia? Literally, the country with the strictest gun control laws in the world. In the world. They confiscated most of the guns 30 years ago. And they continue to regulate, confiscate, control, regulate, confiscate, control. It's almost impossible to get a gun in Australia. And guess what? Within 2 hours of her stupid press conference, two, not one, two, a father and son, two Muslim Islamo terrorists in Sydney, Australia, at one of the most gorgeous, beautiful, best-known beaches in the world, Bondi Beach. One from a pedestrian bridge, the other on the ground. Attacked a Jewish community, a Jewish gathering. They were celebrating the first night of Hanukkah. There were about 1,000 Australian Jews at that park, and armed with rifles and shotguns. And everybody on the beach defenseless. Everybody at the park defenseless, because they weren't allowed to own guns. You see, the citizens were disarmed. The terrorists always managed to get their hands on weapons. Always. It doesn't matter if it's a truck. It doesn't matter if it's knives. It doesn't matter if it's guns. It doesn't matter if it's improvised explosive devices. They will find a way to get weapons. A pressure cooker bomb, as we saw at the Boston Marathon, it doesn't matter. Hijacking planes, as we saw on 9/11. And so, these poor, innocent Jews were like sitting ducks. And from a pedestrian bridge, just shot after shot after shot after shot after shot. And by the way, everybody in Australia now is criticizing and condemning the pathetic, late, weak police response. For 10 harrowing minutes, the police were nowhere. You know what 10 minutes is? When you've got two people with guns and you're completely defenseless? 15 dead bodies. 15 Jews dead. 40 injured. They say a couple will not make it. The death toll keeps getting higher and higher. A 4-year-old girl was wounded. She's lucky to be alive. A 12-year-old girl was shot. Her head was shot off. And you stand there with your multi-million-dollar contract? And you're the coach of a women's basketball team? You ignoramus? And you're like, it's the guns. It's the guns. This doesn't happen anywhere else. Would it kill you to read a freaking newspaper? In Britain, they're dropping like flies. You know what they're killing people with? Knives. Norway, 85 people were slaughtered in one of the biggest terrorist attacks in European history. Norway has some of the strictest gun control laws in the history of the world. When you implement gun control, you know what you guarantee? That the murderers and the criminals and the terrorists will have guns, and the innocent law-abiding citizens like those in Sydney, Australia, will be, or in Brown University, will be completely defenseless. Stupid. Just another, I'm sorry, after a while you can't take this anymore. And it's like, could you expand your horizons just a little bit? Now, let me say one last thing, and then I want to go to the phone lines. And I'm not the only one to have noticed this, but I have to say it. What is to me incredible, and please don't get me wrong, as you can tell, I am extremely outraged at what happened in Australia. This is another pogrom. Another pogrom. Like October 7th was a Hamas pogrom. This was another Islamic terrorist pogrom, except it's done in Australia. The Jews are under attack. There is not an inch in Western civilization anymore where they are safe. They're not safe anywhere in Europe. They're not safe in the United States. They're not safe in Canada. They're not safe in Australia. They're not safe anywhere. Because of this rising barbaric anti-Semitism that you can feel it and see it every day, overwhelmingly from the left. Why do we know, and why is the media telling us a lot more about what happened at Bondi Beach in Sydney, Australia, than what's happening in our own country? Again, don't get me wrong. I am livid, outraged, disgusted. I want to throw up over what happened in Australia. My heart breaks for that poor Jewish community. It really does. But, you know, how come I know almost everything what happened in Australia? I can give you the names of the father and the son who perpetrated this. I can tell you everything. Brown University, 20 minutes from where I live. My children, my wife, and I go to Providence all the time. And I have an idiot police chief, an idiot mayor, an idiot attorney general, an idiot governor, and they're like this, like the Keystone Cops. We don't know. We just don't know. I don't know. Okay, well, where's the video surveillance footage? I don't know. There is no footage. How could there be no footage? It's brown. There's cameras everywhere. I don't know. There's no footage. I don't know. Oh, we got the white guy. We got no. You know, sometimes you go and arrest one guy, and then you realize, oops, we screwed up his life. Well, let's go in a completely opposite direction. Why do we know so much more about what happened in Australia than we know in our own country? And I think the answer is obvious. Because they're trying to protect a narrative. Because according to the Democrats in this country and the liberal elites and the media, there is no such thing as Islamic terrorism. And there is no such thing as transgender terrorism. No, it's MAGA, it's Trump, it's got to be some white guy, and if it's not a white guy, then we just suppress it and move on. Those dead children, and they're children, I don't care what anybody says, they're still kids. Those dead, wounded kids at Brown, their grieving families, deserve better. We deserve better. We deserve answers, and we deserve the truth, no matter where it leads. Agree, disagree, 617-266-6868. Okay, let's unleash the hounds, as they say. Best audience in the business. I want to ask you two questions. Number one, what do you think really happened at Brown University? In other words, who do you think was truly responsible for what happened on Saturday? Was this potentially an Islamic terrorist attack, with witnesses saying the shooter yelled out Allahu Akbar before he began to gun down and open fire on those students? And number two, why are they telling us there is no video surveillance footage? Is the media and is Brown itself now complicit and engaging in a cover-up? 617-266-6868. Arthur in Chestnut Hill. You're going to start us off, Arthur, and welcome.
Funny, because I got a lot of things to say about what's going on here. To begin with, I'd like to know what the flavor of the chewing gum was that idiot mayor kept chewing at his first useless press conference. And that governor, I looked like he had makeup on, and he gave the same 30-second message every time he was brought on. Told you nothing, and I'll show you what leadership is in a case like this. If I were, in charge, like you asked me once before, what would I do? Number one, there would have been roadblocks put up. There would have been police all around the area blocking off an area, to keep the person in. And yet none of these things were talked about, or did they happen? And I don't know of any campus police or campus security that doesn't have their cameras everywhere or their presence anywhere. Also, Jeff, the response time, they didn't want to answer that question. You think the response time was bad in Australia? It has to be worse in Providence. And second of all, most people aren't familiar with Brown, but I've been there. They call that College Hill. It's like Emerson or Suffolk downtown in Boston. It's part of a commercial area. When you saw the streets, it looks like you're in a residential area.
That's right.
It's not like a regular campus like Harvard.
That's right.
Okay, so the fact is that the Providence Police Department could have been far away, and where were they? Where were they? There was nothing that was done. Okay, there weren't roadblocks. State police, and once this was done, they had to call in police departments from 8, 9 different communities, and all of the fire departments. There's something very crazy about this whole thing. It's way whacked out, and that's just what I want to say about Brown. But this attack in Australia,
Arthur, I promise I'll let you go on about Australia, but I just want to underscore what you're saying because you're so right. I've been on College Hill. It's a beautiful place. I even took this was maybe 2.5 months ago. I took my older sister-in-law, Grace's older sister, because her daughter is thinking of doing a graduate degree at Brown, my niece. So I literally took them to Brown University. They loved it, by the way. We walked around, we parked, we walked around, we even grabbed some pizza. I said, the local pizza here is phenomenal. A lot of Italians, a lot of Italian Americans in Providence. So we were walking, and you're right. It's it's a commercial area. It's a beautiful area. The one thing she commented, I commented, we all commented, not in a critical way, just as a statement of fact. Everywhere you go, Arthur, every 5 feet there's a camera. Like you can't walk more than 5 feet. Oh, there's a camera. Oh, there's another camera. There's another camera. There's another camera. So for them to now tell us there's no video surveillance footage of anything that happened inside that engineering building, I don't believe them. It's impossible. Because you're 1,000% correct, Arthur. The place it's highly developed. It's commercial. It's also a bit residential. It's got Brown. There's a lot of businesses there as well. It's a high traffic area. Cameras galore. So you're right. Something is whacked out, as you put it. It doesn't pass the smell test. We're being lied to. My question to you, Arthur, and I promise I'll let you go on about Australia. Why do you think they're lying to us? I know I'm asking you to speculate, but what's your theory? Why are we being deliberately misled? Obviously misled. Is it incompetence? Or are they trying to cover up something?
You go to any campus security, okay? They have video cameras and they have people monitoring all different parts of the campus. There's no security office that doesn't have their cameras, and yet the campus security officer, and he looked angry and mad as hell the whole time. He's the only one that showed the proper emotion, but he didn't speak that much. But the campus security cameras. That's where you should get a lot of report. But the response time, it's embarrassing. The fact that the guy can just walk in, just walk out nonchalant, and nobody has a clue. It's so horrible. And you know that the Jewish students were having a service, a Hillel service, because they had one of the Jewish kids was on Fox News. And he pointed out some things because he said one of the girls that was shot dead was a very close friend, and then he got very emotional. And it could, something very simply, any act like that is a terrorist attack, whether it's a jihadic attack. It doesn't matter. Any act like that, mass murder, is a terrorist attack, and we should change our laws. Terrorism isn't a crime; it's an act of war, and should be dealt with far more severely. And anybody involved with an acts like that don't deserve any American rights at all. It's an act of war. And we ought to get our, head out of our ass and start treating these people and doing something about the possibility of this crime. Because, I've said to you before, just when you think things can't get any worse, they get worse. Of course, please let me talk about Australia.
Well, Australia, I was going to say, go ahead. I mean, it can always get worse. Exhibit A, Australia. Arthur, as a person of the Jewish faith, as someone who's a Jew, I got to ask you, are we living now through the barbarism of the 1930s? Is that what we're starting to see? Go, my friend.
Anti-Semitism has existed since way back when. Okay, and I'll tell you something. Because of Obama and his Arab Spring, and he unleashed all those anti-Semitic and all those jihadists, and they became refugees and went all over Europe, and they came to America. America and the way we're handling anti-Semitism is an example as to why it's grown everywhere in the world. Because we're tolerating it now. We've abandoned the Jewish people who have contributed so much to America that it's not even funny. Everywhere you turn, everything about what the Jewish people have is positive, whether it's in culture, medicine, everywhere, everything you can look at. And I'll tell the people of Chestnut Hill, they don't come for Jews in South Boston, my Chestnut Hill neighbors. They come for you where you are, and you better start to learn about upping your security, because what happened in Australia, it's soft targets, and once again, in order to stop a terrorist attack, it takes a good man with a gun. And these people that want to abandon guns, it's not guns, then shoot themselves.
Arthur, God bless you, my friend. Happy Hanukkah, and anyway, I'm gonna be off after Friday, so have a very happy Hanukkah, and stay strong, my friend, and please stay safe. Look, I'm saying this now to every Jewish person in America, and frankly in Canada, Europe, Australia, I don't care where. You have to now be able to defend yourself. You have to. I'm going to get into it. There were a lot more anti-Semitic incidents in Europe over the weekend. It is an explosion in anti-Semitism now, to the point that even Trump, for the first time ever, when he talked about Brown and what happened to our troops in Syria and what happened in Europe and what happened in Australia, you can see the fatigue, the exhaustion on him. It's a scourge. And it's just rising and rising and rising and rising. And my advice to every Jewish person, I mean to every person in general, but especially to every Jewish person now, be armed, be able to protect yourself, make sure you're aware of your surroundings at all times, because this is not going to stop. And I'm telling you, I blame the media. I blame the universities. I blame the Democrats. I blame the left. This explosion in the hatred for Israel, and this Israel phobia, and the hatred of the Jewish nation and the Jewish people has now fed into this hate-filled anti-Semitism that is poisoning people's minds all over the West. And you can feel it now. There is real hatred for the Jews. And my fear is Australia is just the beginning. Brown may be just the beginning. Okay, mass shooting now at Brown University. The shooter, or the alleged shooter, they said they had him in custody. Turns out, no, they don't. This person of interest, Benjamin Erickson, is not the shooter. They say they made a mistake. And now I hope he sues them. I hope he sues the pants off of them, because they've destroyed this poor young man's life. But anyway, so the alleged shooter is still out there. And the question now is the media, is Brown trying to cover up what really happened Saturday at 4:20 p.m. 617-266-6868. 2 students are dead. 9 students are wounded. And they're now telling us no video surveillance footage whatsoever. At least inside the building where the atrocity took place. Now remember, this is an Ivy League institution. Over $8 billion is their endowment. Students are charged roughly $70,000 to $100,000 a year tuition. They've got cameras all over campus, all over outside campus. But somehow they want us to believe that there's no video footage of what happened inside. I don't believe them, and frankly, most people don't believe them. 617-266-6868, which begs the question, what are they covering up? Jack in Rhode Island. Thanks for holding, Jack, and welcome.
Hey, Jeff. Enjoying your show today, and you sure hit the nail on the head talking about the Providence leadership. It was very funny to watch the all 3 or 4 of those guys trying to explain everything. But a couple of things I want to mention. The first thing is, if you recall, a couple of years ago, and it wasn't very long, I think it was about a year and a half ago, that President Brown was on the hot seat because those Palestinian protests were getting very, very heated on College Hill. And then these Jewish donors this year at Harvard and Brown got involved, and they kind of shut the whole thing down. So she probably doesn't want to go there because she allowed all this stuff to get out of control to begin with. The second thing I want to say is my daughter went to school in high school and took a summer class in that building. And one of her very, very best friends is at Brown right now. And according to her, that building, you could walk right in, which is hard to believe. But I heard this on Saturday from her friend that there's not for some reason, that building was open. So the president is going to have to answer for that, too. To your friend, I used to live in, I'm not Jewish myself, but I used to live in Brookline, and I had a lot of friends up there that were Jewish. And to your friend who called from Chestnut Hill, I want to just give him my take on this anti-Semitism. And I lost my first cousin on 9/11 in the Pentagon. And it's not, in my opinion, anti-Semitism. The reason, there are a lot of Americans, people myself, who support Trump, who don't want us to be involved in all of this Israel-Gaza mess, I would call it. And we paid a price ourselves, okay? So when so even though I feel for him, it's not anti-Semitism if we don't support Israel. There are too many Americans that it's America first. It's not that we don't want to support Israel, but let the Americans decide how much we want to get involved in that. And those are the points I want to make to him.
Well, Jack, look, to your last point, you're completely right. You don't have to support Israel. You can be neutral, you can be pro-Palestinian. I mean, my position, I'm very pro-Israel. But no, to me, that's everything what you're saying now is very reasonable. We can agree to disagree, as they say. What is anti-Semitism is hatred for Jewish people. And you saw that with this explosion of anti-Semitism on campuses all over our country. When they start calling for the mass murder of Jews, when they start saying from the river to the sea, Palestine shall be free, the only good Jew is a dead Jew, when they start, waving the flags of Hamas, then that's no longer I'm critical of Israel, or you're openly now championing a terrorist group responsible for the deliberate mass murder, the industrial scale murder of innocent women, men, and children. So there's a sickness there on the left and on campuses, and I agree with you. Christina Paxson, the Brown University president, like many other university presidents at the Ivy League schools, has enabled and empowered this. There's no question. Now, Jack, if you don't mind, I want to, and Australia, what happened over the weekend is a classic example. I mean, I'm sure many of those Jews you found, celebrating Hanukkah could be very critical of Israel. Or they may not even have gone to Israel ever once in their lives. They were slaughtered simply because of their faith, or of their religion, or of their ancestry, because they're Jewish. So that's what I'm talking about. But Jack, I hear you and I understand you. I want to go back to your first point. Are there cameras in that building? Does your daughter know that, or does her friend know that? I know they left the building open, the door open, which to me is criminal. It's negligent. But somehow they're claiming they can't get, there's no surveillance video footage. And I find that very hard to believe. Do you know the answer to that, Jack? Okay, I want to head right back to Jack in Rhode Island just very quickly before I do. It is the Kuhner Country poll question of the day, sponsored by Mario's. Mario's Quality Roofing, Siding, and Windows. Are the Rhode Island authorities turning a blind eye to terrorism in the Brown University shooting? In other words, are they covering up something? Are they hiding something? So let me ask it again. Are the Rhode Island authorities, remember, very liberal, very woke, and these are rabid partisan Democrats, are the Rhode Island authorities turning a blind eye to terrorism in the Brown University shooting? A, yes. B, no. You know where I stand. I am a yes all the way, baby. To me, this screams yes. But that's me. I want to hear from you. You can vote on our webpage, wrko.com/Kuhner, wrko.com/Kuhner, Kuhn as in national ER. And as always, you can vote on X. And man, was I active on X last night. My handle there, all one word, at the Kuhner Report, at the Kuhner Report, Kuhn as in national ER. Okay, Jack in Rhode Island. Jack, really good call. I want to ask you about the first point that you made. You had a daughter. She actually did a summer class at that building where the shooting took place. She has a friend that goes to Brown. Let me ask you, we know there are cameras all over the campus. Are there cameras inside the engineering building and in the classroom where this atrocity took place? Do you know? Does your daughter know? Do you have any clue? I'm just curious. Go ahead, Jack.
I honestly don't have any clue on that. I do recall, I believe, when I picked her up in the summer, this is a year and a half or 2 years ago, that I believe I could walk in there myself, but I can't guarantee. I think I remember being able to do that in the middle of summer, but I know for sure, she told me on Saturday, because this is her best friend, said that building is open and there's not that you can walk in there, which was surprising to me. That's what I heard.
I'm with you, Jack. That's unforgivable. That is unforgivable. And I think the president's going to have to answer for that. The president of Brown is going to have to answer. My God, especially in our day and age. And Jack, not to pour gasoline on the fire. Hey, students now are not really students. Let's be honest. They're almost like customers. When you're, shelling out 70, 80, 90, 100K a year just for tuition, never mind room and board and everything else, the least you can do is provide ironclad security. Like many college campuses, you got to have a pass or a permit or a card or whatever, a student ID, and you swipe it or scan it, whatever, to get into a building. But that anybody from the public, you, me, anybody can just la-da-da. Oh, let me go shoot up a school today. Oh, ooh, the engineering building, that's open. La-da-da, just open the front door. Unforgivable. Unforgivable. Jack, thank you so much for that call. All right, let's go to Bill in Sudbury. Thanks for holding, Bill, and welcome.
Hello, good morning. Good morning, Jeff. I don't want to fight with you today. I just wanted to tell you the striking thing that struck me as I was watching the coverage of the Brown shooting. These college students, they're experts at duck and cover. They have been having live shooter drills their whole lives. Their whole entire lives. So when this happened, they were surprisingly ready for it, which I think is a terrible thing. We, the adults, have really let our children down by not doing anything across their entire life to prevent this.
Well, Bill, first of all, I want to wish you a Merry Christmas. I want to wish you a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year and all the best to you and your family. And look, again, Bill, I'm always shocked. And I'll just be I'm sorry, I have to be brutally honest with you. When Afghanistan fell in that disastrous debacle, you were the only one who called and you praised Joe Biden. And I was shocked, but that's okay. That's you. You're entitled to your opinion. We now have another debacle. It's not 13 U.S. service members dead, but it's 2 students dead. The whole world in front of them, their whole life in front of them. 9 others wounded, 1 in very critical condition. I'm praying for this person and their family because they may not make it. And you call up the show, and it's always gun control. It's always gun control. And all we've done is respond to school shootings. You say we've done nothing. It's the opposite. We've done so much. It's an obsession. All we do is react and respond to shootings. And even in your comment about the students being ready, they were not ready. If you read anything about what happened, they were in a complete panic. Many of them were getting panic attacks. They openly said they didn't know what to do. Many of them ran around desperately. They hid in closets. They hid in classrooms. They hid in their dorms. They barricaded the doors. They said they all felt completely helpless. Now, why should they be helpless in a university? Why weren't there school resource officers, police officers, in that engineering building? I would have school resource officers in every building. Now, they may get a couple shots off, but that's it. You're dead. No gun-free zones. You walk into that building, you're carrying a gun, you're going to be shot dead. Period. Full stop. Video surveillance cameras everywhere. You have to have doors that are locked. Hell, high schools have their doors locked. My kids go to school. 9 o'clock, whatever, 8:30, whenever their classes start, bang, the doors are locked. Front door, back door, nobody can get in. You have to ring to allow them to get you in. And even then, there are other doors you have to go through to get in. You're going to tell me one of the top Ivy League schools with an $8 billion endowment can't provide the most basic security? But you see, you can't have a conversation like this because it's always the freaking guns. You people have you want to destroy the First Amendment. You're all for censorship. That's what you said it many times. You want me dead, and you want people who listen to this show dead because you hate our views. So you're for censorship. You're against the First Amendment. You're against the Second Amendment. You're against the Bill of Rights. And you always want to take away people's legitimate constitutional rights whenever some madman shoots up a school or a university. And honestly, I think it's sick. To politicize the dead the way you do, honestly, Bill, you should be ashamed of yourself.
Illusions. You think I listen to the show because I don't like you? What are you, crazy? What are you, crazy? I love the show, Jeff. I love the show, and I love the listeners. Okay,
well, I appreciate it, but I mean, you call us Nazis, and you call us white supremacists, and you've called the show multiple times saying I should be killed and this audience should be murdered. So if that's your idea of love, I hate to see what your idea of hate is. But look, Bill, you've said what you've said. We have it on tape. My question to you is this. Well, and he just hung up. My question to you is this, okay, and to all the liberals out there. Why is it always the same response? How come it can't be, why weren't there police officers, resource officers at the school? Why? They certainly have the money. They have more than enough money. Okay, why weren't there extra layers of protection? Well, how come the doors weren't locked and only students and faculty can access it? Whatever, you scan your card, whatever it is, you have and that opens the door for you. How come? High schools can do it. What? An Ivy League school can't do it? And now they want us to seriously believe? Like, to me, this is an issue not left, right, conservative, liberal, Democrat, Republican. This is sheer incompetence and lies. You're telling me there's no video surveillance footage of what happened at the shooting? That there were no cameras inside that building? Bull, you know what? I can't say it. BS. Bull crap. So what are they covering up? Don't we have a right to know? No, you don't care. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, you can text the Kuhner Man, 70470. This is from 603. Jeff, we're not saying that all Muslims or transgenders are terrorist murderers. But what we are saying is that so far, all of the terrorist murderers have been Muslims or transgenders. Personally, if I were this young military man, i.e. that so-called person of interest, Benjamin Erickson, who they've now let go because he's not the guy who did it, I would be suing every institution and media outlet who falsely accused him. A1603. And he's got the mother of all lawsuits. And I got to say, I feel very sorry for the guy. I really do. You don't throw around person of interest, storm the guy's hotel room with CNN present at 3:45 in the morning, and splash his name all across the country, and, insinuate and basically say, everything but he's the guy, with law enforcement doing press conference after press conference, including, Kash Patel and the FBI, and everybody's doing a victory lap. We got him. We got him. And then by Sunday night, it was almost, midnight or 11 o'clock? Oops. Sorry, he's not the guy. It's the Keystone Cops. I'm telling you, it's the Keystone Cops. And by the way, Arthur was Chestnut Hill was 1,000% correct when he said, why weren't streets blocked off? Why weren't neighborhoods just completely, closed off or barricaded? The police were late. They were sloppy. They had no clue what was going on. The perpetrator had hours to make his escape. Hours. 617-266-6868. Nat, is it Nat or Nate, Matt? Mike, sorry. Is it Nat or Nate? Nat. Okay. Nat in Seekonk. Thanks for holding, Nat, and welcome.
Jeff, good morning. How are you?
I'm good. How are you, Nat?
I'm good. Being a veteran, it's really tough to hear what's going on with this alleged perpetrator, and it's too bad that, in a sense, he wasn't the guy, because now we know that the suspect's still out there. And it's just really unfortunate to see the police response and the ongoing investigation. It's almost like the marathon bombings all over again. We're going to be going into a 4 or 5 day excursion to hunt this guy down. I just wanted to share really quick that 2 years ago, when I was in the telecommunications industry, I worked on the library, which is on the corner of Waterman and Thayer Street, which is a Brown building, Brown University building. And when we were working on the rooftop, putting up the new cell phone antennas, we had to we had to call Brown University staff. They had to escort us in with badges. That place was locked down tight. So to hear that this incident happened and that they don't have clear imagery besides that 5-second video of the guy's back turned to us, it's just unbelievable. I think there's a lot more, like you asked earlier, I think there's a lot more that they're not telling us, and that it's just raising a lot of eyebrows, especially mine.
Nat, if you don't mind me asking, and again, if I'm getting too personal, please tell me, I understand. When you went into that Brown building, because I've been to Brown, but not inside. Just a couple months ago, I took my niece and my sister-in-law, and we walked around, but we just walked around on campus. So, as I said, I don't want to repeat myself, cameras everywhere. They're on the street, they're on the campus, everywhere. To me, I'm just assuming there's got to be cameras inside the building. How could there not be cameras? Every other university has cameras everywhere inside the buildings. So I'm like, there's no way. But, I'm like 99.9999999% sure. I can't say 100% sure because I didn't go inside a building. When you went inside that building, were there cameras inside?
That I had access to, it was like, first off, on the street, Brown University definitely,
it's everywhere.
99.99, exactly. Especially Providence, too. They have Flox cameras.
Oh, it's everywhere.
Everywhere. But as far as where I was, we went through a hallway into some service elevators, and then from there, right onto the rooftop. They have rooftop cameras, obviously. So as far as my experience goes, there was only a few cameras that I was probably recorded on. But in that building, I can only imagine that there were a few for, like, anybody walking off the streets. They got to know who's going in and out. So I wasn't there. I don't know what happened, but clearly there was a dysfunction with them not being able to make an identification at this point in time.
See, my suspicion, Nat, is they don't want to make an identification. Because if they make an identification, it goes against the entire narrative that the Democrats and the media are pushing, which is that MAGA are terrorists. But there is no such thing as a transgender terrorist or especially an Islamic terrorist. You may disagree with me, but to me, I think it's pretty obvious. Look, I can just tell you this. Every university that I've been in, okay, where I've given talks or whatever, and I'm not trying to insult the university, but University of Southern New Hampshire, cameras everywhere inside. It's not a world-class institution. I'm not putting it down. They have good classes, good professors, good students. I'm talking about, this is not the Ivy League where you're paying 70, 80, 90K a year just for tuition. So I've been to Boston University. I've been to Boston College. I've been to MIT. I've been to Harvard. I've been to multiple buildings in Harvard. Okay, it's my brother-in-law. He's doing a postgraduate there. He invited me to certain things. Long story short. Anyway, my point is they all have cameras up the wazoo inside every building. I'm not blaming. I'm just describing. So I find it impossible to believe that there are no cameras inside that engineering building. I don't believe it. I just don't believe it. Okay, unless this is the most incompetent, dysfunctional institution in the United States. Where my kids go to school, Ava goes to a middle school, Ashton to a high school. Cameras outside, cameras inside. Elementary schools have cameras inside. High schools have cameras inside. Brown doesn't have cameras inside? Hey, come on, they're playing us for fools. Nat, am I wrong?
But in my alumni high school, without them giving me, I can't even step foot on the grounds without them thinking something suspicious, And, for all the colleges, I've worked at Rochester Institute of Technology on the rooftops there, Dartmouth College up in New Hampshire, you name it, I've been there, all in New England. And all the time I have to go through security, campus police, and all the time I got to give them my credentials, usually my military card too, so they know who I am well before I even get on site. Everything's locked down pat. And especially with Brown University, when I worked there this was July of 2024, it was a process. So it blows my mind that this incident granted, somebody might have planned it out, but that they don't have concrete evidence and they don't have any means of identifying the person of interest. So that's all I got for you. Thanks for letting me on.
Oh, great call. Great call. Please don't be a stranger, Nat. Call again, and I want to thank you for your service. God bless you, Nat. No, look, I don't believe him. Frankly, even the media doesn't believe him. You could tell even on their faces. When that police chief came out, because, everybody asked the obvious question, well, you got the video surveillance footage. Like, we can get a really good description of the guy. And he said, no, there's no video surveillance footage. And you could see the reporters, like their jaw dropped. They're all like, what? What do you mean? No, there's no surveillance footage. Well, how can there be no surveillance footage? I don't know. There's just no surveillance footage. There's no surveillance footage inside the building, inside the classroom, nowhere. No, there's no. Now, when I heard that, cover up. I mean, come on. It screams cover up. So then I say, well, what are they trying to cover up? Remember now, this is a very woke, far left, anti-Israel, anti-Semitic institution. They had riots and protests on campus at Brown like you had at Columbia or Harvard. So, and remember, the professor that led that class is a professor by the name of Rachel Friedberg. She's Jewish. She teaches a class on the economic impacts of immigration and Judaic studies. That's literally what the class is about. She's a Jewish professor who oversees the Judaic studies program at Brown. Now, this could be a coincidence. These things happen. I doubt it, but it could happen. But you combine that with the fact that multiple eyewitnesses said to the police, and the local media is refusing to report on this, and so is Brown. But other national media have completely reported on it, saying, no, we heard the shooter say, Allahu Akbar. He came in and he yelled, Allahu Akbar. And then it was boom, 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 boom. Now, all the university is saying is the shooter, quote, yelled something, unquote. I don't know. He said something. Well, what did he say? We don't know. You don't know? But what do the witnesses tell you? Well, we're still looking into it. Okay. Don't you have surveillance footage cameras? Don't you have video evidence, video surveillance? It doesn't show anything. What? Now, remember what changed. Because only a couple hours after, remember, the shooting takes place 4:20 p.m. our time, okay, Saturday. Just a couple hours later, now remember, Australia is it's a completely different time zone, but for our time's sake, the story broke about Bondi Beach in Sydney. Just a couple hours later. In some ways, internationally, it overshadowed what happened at Brown because of the massive death toll. So that's where it came out, where two Islamic terrorists, and they can't cover this one up, a father and a son, 50 and 24, deliberately targeted and gunned down and shot up a Jewish community gathering on the first night of Hanukkah. Because remember, in Australia, it's summer now. This is now their summer break. So everybody's going to the beach. And Bondi Beach, I mean, I've never been to Australia, but even I've heard of Bondi Beach. It's apparently a gorgeous beach. I mean, world-renowned. Beautiful sand, golden sand, beautiful sea, nice grassy areas, great place for surfers, sunbathers. You like to picnic. I mean, it's a big hot spot in Sydney. So the beach was packed. And there were a lot of Jewish people, Australian Jews, celebrating Hanukkah. And they were a little bit more in the back, in the more of the grassy area. And so, they were lighting stuff and, celebrating. And right off a pedestrian bridge, the shooters set themselves up, and it was like shooting fish in a barrel. and you hear these poor people running, and you see the videos of them in their bikinis and their bathing suits, desperately running, taking cover. Nobody had a gun. Nobody. There were police assigned to the beach. According to multiple eyewitnesses, there were 4 police officers. All 4 of them froze. They panicked and they froze. They did nothing. In fact, the only person that did something was a fruit vendor who appears to be Middle Eastern. Some people say he's a Muslim. Other people say he's a Maronite Christian. We're going to find out. But he's the hero. Okay, this poor fruit vendor who sells fruit. And he charges up to one of the shooters, one of the terrorists. And from the back, he's wrestling him. And then he takes the gun away. And then this poor fruit vendor, and saved God knows how many lives, is then himself shot and wounded. So it took a civilian, a fruit vendor, who was defenseless, to go and charge and really put his life on the line to grab one of the shooters, the terrorists, to try to take the gun away from him, and then ended up being shot and wounded in the process. And only after he took the gun away and basically disarmed one of the shooters and was shot and wounded, the witnesses say the police finally began to return fire. Now remember, this is after 10 minutes. To show you how bad it was, by the way, blood everywhere, bodies everywhere. It's like out of a horror movie. 15 dead, 40 injured. They say a couple are not going to make it. At least 2 or 3 are. The death toll is going to go up. Several are not going to make it. One Jewish father said he grabbed his girl, one of his girls, and right away hit the ground. They just threw themselves on the ground. But he couldn't see his second daughter, a 4-year-old girl, Gigi. And he's yelling and shouting, Gigi, Gigi, Gigi. And then about 10, 15 feet away, he sees a woman covered in blood. And she's on top of his daughter. So his daughter is underneath this woman who's covered in blood. And the father yells out, because the poor girl has blood as well. He says, has my girl been hurt? Has my girl been hurt? She says, no, that's my blood. This is what the woman says. Don't worry. I'm protecting and shielding your daughter. She literally took a bullet to save the life of the 4-year-old girl. And 2 feet away from that 4-year-old girl is a dead woman. Is a dead woman. Nobody on that beach was armed. Nobody in that Jewish community was armed. They had 4 police officers. They did nothing. They did nothing. So my point is, you now have one of the worst Islamic terrorist atrocities in recent memory. It's a pogrom. Open and shut. It's terrorism. Open and shut. By 2 Islamists who Australia allowed in. And by the way, I have to say this. I'm not a big sports fan. As you know, I watch less and less sports as I get older. But I remember this. There was an excellent Serbian tennis player, actually one of the best, if not the best ever. His name is Djokovic, Novak Djokovic. You can look it up. He was banned from playing at the Australian Open because he refused to take the jab. He said, I don't want to put that in my body. I don't want to put this vaccine in my body. And Australia banned him. I think they banned him for a couple of years. And he couldn't play at one of the, it's a Grand Slam tournament. It's up there with the U.S. Open, Wimbledon, the French Open. He wasn't allowed to play. He wasn't allowed to set foot on Australian soil. Now, in Australia, let me tell you what they're all showing on social media. They're saying Australia banned, and there's a picture of Novak Djokovic on the right screen, the tennis player, okay, with a tennis shirt. Him, they banned. The guy on the left is the 24-year-old son of the two terrorists, the father-son team, that killed 15 and wounded 40. Him, Australia let in. You see, the Islamists, they let in. But the Serbian tennis player who plays of a great game of tennis, who just didn't want to take their dinky jab, no. That's banned in Australia. You see what's wrong? That's what's wrong with multicultural Australia. In a nutshell. Anyway, my point is this. Remember now, this only took place in Australia, Bondi Beach in Sydney, Australia, only a couple hours after the Brown shooting. So now, I'm telling you, I know how the Moonbats think. I know how the governor thinks, how the mayor thinks. They're thinking, eesh, you've already got it now in Australia. What if if this guy's an Islamist? If this was an act of Muslim terrorism? I mean, this is going to lead to an explosion. The country's going to go up in arms. The religion of peace narrative that we keep pushing, it's going to blow up. We can't have it be Islamic terrorism on the heels of what just happened in Australia. That's the context. And so they said, okay, come on, let's find somebody. Can't be Muslim. Come on, give me something. And bang, Benjamin Erickson. And they were halfway to framing him. Now, I don't know exactly what broke down, but clearly he had an alibi. But I mean, they were setting it up. This guy was the shooter. They were he's mentally ill. There was no evidence. I remember reading this. I'm like, well, I don't get it. He served in the military 3 years. Nobody complained in the military about this guy whatsoever. You've got friends of his, people who went to school with him, saying, okay, if you want to nitpick, he's a bit on the quiet side. But once you get to know him, the guy won't stop talking. He'll talk your ear off. So he's social, highly intelligent. They go, no, there's no mental health problem with this guy. And then it was like, why would he drive 1,000 miles from Wisconsin to target Brown in Rhode Island at this engineering building, at this particular classroom? You're like, it doesn't make sense. And then you saw the picture of the guy, and the guy looks so normal, it's not even funny. Anyway, by the grace of God, this poor man wasn't framed. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, this is a text from my sister in Tucson, Arizona. And I think Jen makes a great point. Jeff, remind me to never send my kids to Brown University. That's like being at the Ritz-Carlton, and any loser off the street can walk in and knock on your room door. Why is the Rhode Island police chief talking in Spanish at the press conference? This is her husband, Martin, my brother-in-law. Martin says, quote, I don't speak Spanish. If I'm a parent and I'm listening to the news, this is concerning because I can't understand what the police chief is saying. Providence is a sanctuary city. Rhode Island is a sanctuary state. That's why the police chief is speaking en español, in Spanish. I'm telling you, you can't make this up. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, let's go right back to the blazing phone lines. Mark in Medford. Thanks for holding, Mark, and welcome.
Good morning, Jeff. I think, Jeff, at the end of every year, you should have awards for your callers. And I should go under the most dedicated. Over 2 hours I've been waiting to get on this subject, and everybody stole my talking points. But you know what, Jeff? I'm going to reiterate because we can't say it enough, okay? first of all...
Oh, I thought... Hold on, Mark. I thought you were going to say awards for one of our best callers. Because you're definitely worth the wait, Mark. I'll tell you this. So let her rip, buddy. I'm looking forward to it. Go.
I appreciate it. So like I said, I'm going to reiterate because we can't say it enough. First of all, I don't believe for a second, Jeff, that there is no security footage from inside Brown University. So we'll chalk that up as number one on the list as Bravo Sierra. Okay? Number two, which has already been touched on, which can't be said enough, is that the left, the Democrats, and the media cannot afford to have another illegal, another transgender, another Muslim be responsible for a mass shooting. So let's pin it on somebody else, and then we'll say, oh, we made a mistake. It wasn't the guy. But meanwhile, the guy who really did it is probably back in the Middle East already and took a fight from Logan.
Yeah, or T.F. Green out of Providence. No, Mark, I got to tell you, no, you're making a ton of sense. I mean, now, yeesh, it's going to be very hard to track this guy down. And, Mark, I got to tell you, it's very dispiriting. Mark, I've got to ask you this. The way the media is covering up for Brown, for the anti-Semitism at Brown, how they don't want to mention the fact that Allahu Akbar was heard by many of the students. Why is the media, especially the local media, Sandy is livid. She says she's been combing the local media. No one is reporting. No one, not a single outlet, that this guy yelled Allahu Akbar before, or that you have students that said he yelled Allahu Akbar. Why is the Providence media, the Rhode Island media, the local police, what are they so afraid of? I mean, don't the parents deserve to know the truth? Am I wrong, Mark?
% right. And the local media in Connecticut and Rhode Island, and even here, Jeff, they are never ever. I stopped, Jeff, watching local news since COVID. When they started with all the bull crap with COVID, that's when I stopped watching local news. I watch Fox, I watch Newsmax, and sometimes Fox also pisses me off because they don't go to the full extent of what needs to be said, Jeff. I'm tired of it. Listen, they need to change the narrative, Jeff, because like I said and like you said, we can't keep having Muslims and illegal aliens and transgenders being accused of this shooting. No, we're not accusing them of it. They're doing it. So let's just call a spade, okay? Whoever's guilty of doing it, just report the news. We don't want your freaking opinion. We want real journalism, not bullcrap.
Mark, as always, drop the mic. Thank you very much for that call, Mark. 617-266-6868. Okay, there's more breaking information now from what happened at Brown and some of the victims, which is adding another twist to this story already. So please hang on. I've got that. More with your calls. Don't. 617-266-6868. Don't touch that dial. Okay, let's go to Anthony in Rhode Island. Thanks for holding, Anthony, and welcome.
Morning, sir. How are you today?
Very good. How are you, Anthony?
I'm doing well, sir. We are listening to an AM talk radio show down here occasionally, which is, I'm not going to mention the gentleman's name because he's well loved down here, but we only have one AM talk radio station in the morning, and it is on a 2.5-hour news loop right now. I've heard about the New England Patriots losing about 20 times today, and I'm You're right, 100%. Sandy's right. They're not reporting anything down here. There are cameras. There's no question. You can't go anywhere, as you know, anywhere in the city without being videotaped. If you blow your nose going through a yellow light, you get a $50 tag down here in Rhode Island. So she's 100% right. They're not reporting anything. The situation with the police chief was a political move. There was a gentleman, if not two, but significantly one, that should have gotten that position. He was beyond talented, educated in Washington, FBI school, incredibly talented, but they gave it to this gentleman once Mayor Smiley was elected. There is a gentleman running presently for mayor who worked on the mayor's race in New York. This state is bluer than blue, as you know, Jeff, and it is a dangerous place, as we now can see, because it's like the Three Stooges down here.
Anthony, I'm just curious. By the way, excellent. I mean, I got to tell you, really just excellent analysis on what's happening in Rhode Island. Why? Why are they covering up, obviously, what happened? There's obviously video cameras. There's obviously surveillance footage. Many witnesses now say they heard the shooter say, Allahu Akbar. Why is the local media covering this up, and why is the local police covering it up? What's your theory?
Well, my theory is a simple one, and the simple fact is everything that we talk about, or you talk about on your show, is beyond correct. There has been a manipulation since probably 43 down here in Rhode Island since the unions came in, but that tone was changed, and it went from something originally historically positive to a manipulative system by way of this socialist mentality and control. And they basically weren't watching the National Democratic Party down here. As you know, we have very powerful people coming from Gina Raimondo to Bill Clinton's of Malta, Joe Paolino. People don't realize that Rhode Island is incredibly ground zero, specifically for 9/11 with the Naval War College down in Newport. So for a state, and I hope we can all laugh at this when you're listening, is that Rhode Island is such a blue liberal state that their number one import-export is Raytheon and military. So, you know, it's such a liberal state that the whole goddamn state is like a war. It's like a war machine down here. And as you know, going through Newport, Rhode Island, the only thing they're really lacking down here, Jeff, is really good Neapolitan pizza. But that's a conversation for another. I think you understand my point. So
you nailed it, Anthony. Thank you very much for that call. Really good call. He's completely right on every count. If it's possible, Rhode Island is even bluer than Massachusetts, because you get about 40% in Massachusetts still vote against the Democrats. And the largest voting bloc, I know many of them tend to vote Democrat, but the largest voting bloc in Mass are actually independents. So what I'm saying is there's at least some competition. Not much, but at least there's some competition. Rhode Island is, I mean, it's a Democrat mafia state. It's run by the Democrats from top to bottom, and they own the media, lock, stock, and barrel. Now, just very quick, because there are some developments. So, the local media, again, is trying to suppress this fact. The first kill victim, the first victim that was shot and killed, is a young woman by the name of Ella Cook. She's now been identified. Ella Cook was the vice president of the Young Republicans Club, the only Republican club allowed on the campus at Brown University. She is obviously white. She's a Christian conservative. And so why is this fact, this twist, why is this being deliberately omitted and suppressed by the media? especially the local media. Now, the reason why I mention this is because some of the witnesses are saying that when the shooter came in, it was as if the first target he had to get was Ella Cook. That he zeroed in on her. Yes, he was shooting up the classroom. Yes, obviously there were other victims, no question. But it seemed as if she was the first. He wanted her dead. He wanted her dead first, and then continued with everybody else in the classroom. She's apparently one of only about 20 open Republicans, or open conservatives, forgive me, open conservatives at Brown. Was this an insane Democrat? Was this a deranged Democrat? Are there multiple layers to this that we're not being told? But the fact of the matter is, why won't the media, the local media, the liberal media, report on the fact who this victim was? Again, it's cover-up upon cover-up upon cover-up. 617-266-6868. Linda in Medford. Thanks for holding, Linda, and welcome.
Hello. I'm somebody who thinks we're shooting too low on all of this stuff. It's all baloney. We keep saying Bondi, the DOJ. Forget them. Bring in the CIA. This is treason. You look at Oma, she walks around saying whatever she wants. All this fraud and corruption. Now the same thing in Maine. We have Mike Kelly with his don't obey the orders. Bring in the CIA. Charge some of these people. If they're found guilty, they have the right to defend themselves and present their proof. It's the death penalty. And in a couple of months, all of this baloney will stop.
Well, I agree, Linda. We've got to start really hammering these terrorists. And we've got to start, I agree with you. It's got to be the electric chair, a lethal injection, I don't care. Hanging, shooting by firing squad, I don't care. But we got to start taking the gloves off. But, Linda, if they're going to start covering up for acts of terrorism, then we've got a really big problem. And the only thing now, because I think Anthony made a very good point, look, that police chief is an affirmative action hire. Let's just call it as it is. The president at Brown is an affirmative action hire. I mean, you had so many people there. They're either affirmative action hires or they're hacks. Okay? Incompetent, ignorant, stupid hacks. So you scratch your head because it's like the Three Stooges. And you go, I don't know, is this colossal incompetence? Or is this, willful? A willful cover-up. Like you just scratch your head. Or a little bit of both. But that's the problem now that we face. And look, my fear is that the longer this now goes on, this shooter may get away. And look, this is where I blame the FBI. Kash Patel shooting his mouth off. Oh, we helped the local police capture this guy, this so-called person of interest, Benjamin Erickson. Oh, we used special geolocation technology and we tracked down his phone and, it was the gun. It was the gun. He had a laser-guided gun. The perpetrator used a special laser scope. We got him. We got him. And you're the head of the FBI? You just got ahead of your own skis. Do you understand what you've just done? You have essentially destroyed an innocent man. And his reputation now is in tatters. And, Sandy was completely right. She said, most people, they just read the headlines. That's all they read. They read the initial story. They don't read the follow-up stories. So I'll tell you what they read. All Sunday, they're like, they got him. Oh, great. Oh, well, they got him. Okay. Ooh, a white guy. White military guy. Ooh, probably MAGA. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, I promise I'm going to continue to take your calls. In fact, there's a couple lines open if you want to jump on. But just for a couple minutes, I just want everybody just to sit back, relax, because you need to hear this. All of you need to hear this. So I played the cut earlier. I want to play it again because I think it's extremely important to confront how liberals, the Democrats, the media, the left deal with shootings in our country again and again and again. So here is the coach of the University of Southern California, USC women's basketball team. And this was just after it came out that there was this mass shooting at Brown. 2 students dead, 9 wounded. And this is what she had to say. Okay? It's the guns. It's the guns. Roll cut 17, a mic.
Before we start, I came out from the game and had a million text messages about a mass shooting at my alma mater, Brown. So that's hard. Doesn't need to be this way. Sending thoughts and prayers to my teammates who have kids there, to the parents who have to worry about their children. I'm just going to end it with that, but just to say we're the only country that lives this way. The college football cycle has been in the news a million times, and are we going to report about this? Like, it's the guns. We're the only country that lives this way. Parents should not have to worry about their kids. I have a teammate who has a daughter who is in the basement of a library because they don't know what's going on there, and she's flying there tomorrow. So just wanted to start with that because I would be remiss if I didn't mention that's going on, and hopefully everyone, is safe and praying for peace for those who've lost people, and that's that. It's more important than basketball. We can all be better, right, with that.
Right, okay, blah, 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 blah. By the way, in Australia, they were lying on the ground as the bullets were flying on the beach. And they've taken away practically all the guns. Okay? It's the guns. It's the guns. It's the guns. Okay? But let that go. Another big story, and I really don't want to talk about it very much, except just to make the obvious point. Rob Reiner, the Hollywood actor, director, to me, I always know him as Meathead. That was the character that he played on All in the Family. 78 years old, his wife, Michelle, 68 years old, were murdered last night at their home. And according to media reports, I'm just going by what the media said, apparently they believe the suspect was the son, that his own son used a knife and stabbed Reiner and the wife. Why? We don't know. Anyway, and we'll find out eventually. But the point is this. What if I came out and said, it's the knives? It's the knives. Because do you know how many people are killed through stabbings in the United States every year? Do you know that in Britain, which has some of the strictest gun control laws on the planet, London's murder rate is through the roof? You know what the weapon of choice is? Yup, you guessed it, knives. A knife. Now notice, the left never says, it's the knives. Or when an Islamic terrorist, and I'm going to get to this in a second, when they rent a truck to mow down people at a Christmas market, say in Germany or Amsterdam, as they did, for example, in Germany recently, as they've done in France multiple times, notice they never say, it's the trucks. It's the trucks. Only with guns. Only with guns. Now, the deeper point, okay? The deeper point. You look now at the last 72 hours. Something has happened. There's no question. The jihadists are on the march. Global Islam and the global Islamist terrorist war on the West has intensified and escalated. In Syria, 2 U.S. soldiers and a U.S. interpreter were slaughtered and murdered by an ISIS terrorist who was part of the security forces of this new Islamic Syrian government that, for I don't understand why, the United States, Canada, Europe are blessing and supporting. And so here is an ISIS murderer who was allowed to stay in this government, this new Al-Qaeda-linked government. And when he saw his chance, ambushed and killed 2 of our soldiers and 1 of our interpreters. By the way, 3 other soldiers are wounded. A naked Islamic terrorist attack. You had, and I talked about this in Australia, where 2 Islamists, armed to the teeth, deliberately targeted and ambushed and attacked a Jewish gathering of about 1,000 Australian Jews at a beach in Sydney, Bondi Beach, world famous, as they celebrated the first night of Hanukkah. 15 dead, including a rabbi and a 12-year-old girl. 40 others injured and wounded. As I said already, 2 or 3 are most likely not going to make it. They're going to die. Blood everywhere. Bodies everywhere. In fact, I want you to listen to this. This is just a taste of what those poor people endured. Now remember, they're in bathing trunks. They're in bikinis. It's summertime now in Australia. It's the beginning of their summer break. This is one of the most highly trafficked beaches. It's a tourist site. A lot of tourists. It's world famous. It's got stunning beaches, beautiful sand, beautiful water, a lot of surfers. Within Sydney itself, it's a huge attraction. So there were so many children and families there. Police officers, by the way, were stationed. They did nothing for over 10 minutes. They were paralyzed and literally did nothing as the shooters just shot after shot after shot, and one person was dying after another. And people yelling, shouting, screaming in panic. In Australia, they took away all the guns. Nobody on that beach except for the 4 police officers who froze, who literally froze. No one was armed. They were defenseless. It was like sheep to the slaughter. Roll cut 8, Mike. Go. 10 minutes. 10 full minutes. Methodical. Boom. 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 10 minutes. Police, nowhere. It turned out it was a fruit vendor. A fruit vendor. An armless fruit vendor. Who had the guts to rush one of the 2 terrorists. It was a father and son team, both Islamic terrorists, and wrestled one of the rifles away from one of the terrorists. And then this poor fruit vendor was shot and critically wounded. And only after he did that did the police begin to fire at the 2 terrorists. This was after 10 minutes. It was like shooting fish in a barrel. It was clearly, as I said it earlier, this was a pogrom. This was a deliberate anti-Semitic Islamic terrorist attack. There is no question. These were both radical Islamists. Why Australia let them in? That's the question I keep asking in Australia or the United States or Canada or Europe. But listen now, speaking of Europe, because it's not just the Jews and U.S. soldiers who got butchered over the weekend. In Germany, in Deutschland, police arrested, this was in Bavaria, okay, the southern part of Germany. They arrested 5 Muslim extremists, 3 Moroccans, a Syrian, and apparently the lead of this, the ringleader, a 56-year-old Egyptian, who apparently is a prayer leader. That's how he's defined in the German press, a prayer leader at one of the mosques in Bavaria. They planned and coordinated a specific attack on a Christmas market in Bavaria, where their goal was to rent a truck. And as you know, it's a big thing in Europe. They all go to these traditional Christmas markets. They have for a very long time. It is packed and crowded with people. Again, fish in a barrel. Except their weapon of choice wasn't going to be a gun. It was going to be a truck. And they were going to mow them down. Mow them down. And when they've committed these attacks before, and they have many times, you're always talking 30, 40, 50, 60, 70 dead. These are mass casualty atrocities. Apparently now police in Amsterdam, it just came out, this broke maybe 10 minutes ago. They said they broke up a terrorist plot. Again, Islamic extremists plotting to rent a truck in order, by the way, with explosive devices in the trucks to target a traditional Christmas market. So the victims there were going to be Christians whose only sin is celebrating Christmas and buying something for Christmas dinner or a gift or a craft or whatever. Now, what's the overall point? You're going to say, okay, Jeff. Number one, it's clear that radical Islam is on the march. But let me tell you now what the real effect is. In Europe, they are now canceling most traditional Christmas markets. In much of Germany, they don't hold them anymore. In much of France, they don't hold them anymore. In Denmark, in Sweden, in Norway, in Belgium, they don't hold them anymore. In England, forget about it. Because the threat is too high. That you're going to have one of these crazy jihadists get a U-Haul truck or a rent-a-truck or whatever and run people over, plow them down, and massacre them. So what you're seeing is you are witnessing the de-Christianization of Europe because of a response to Islamic extremism and the threat of Islamic terrorism, that it is so rampant, it is so prevalent, it is so consistent, and it is so frequent that now they're saying, forget it, don't bother with the Christmas market because the risk is just too high. Here, my sister texted me this. In France, it's one of the biggest things. They've been doing this for forever. Okay? The Champs-Élysées. It's beautiful. I've been there. I've been to France a few times. Beautiful. If you haven't been to Paris, please go to the Champs-Élysées. It's one of the things you must do in life. They have a big New Year's Eve celebration. It had to be canceled this year. Why? Fear of an Islamic terrorist attack. So now they are destroying the Western way of life. In Europe, they're too afraid to go to church. They're too afraid to go to a traditional Christmas market. They're too afraid to even hold an outdoor New Year's Eve celebration. Why? Because of the threat of Islamic militancy and the threat of Islamic fundamentalism. In Australia, they have now turned Sydney into a slaughter zone. In the United States, do I need to repeat it? How many attacks committed by Islamic terrorists? From 9/11 to the Boston Marathon bombing to the Orlando Pulse Club. I mean, listen, I could give you dozens and dozens and dozens. And now it may be, maybe, Brown University. They're picking off our soldiers in Syria. As we try to help that country, this is the thanks that we get. So, I've got to ask the question, and I know it's going to drive the Moonbats insane. They're going to call for me to be taken off the air, because that's what they've been doing now for, 12, 13 years. But facts are facts are facts. Reality is reality is reality. Truth is truth is truth. How is diversity our strength? Tell me, how is Australia better off for having brought in wave after wave after wave of Muslim migration? How is France better off? How is Germany better off? And remember, the Germans let them in from places like Syria who were fleeing Bashar Assad. They were fleeing war. And this is the thanks Germany gets? You can't even give us peace during our traditional Christmas season? We can't go to a traditional Christmas market and congregate and celebrate and spend time together? And just to make the matter crystal clear, because this is what the left keeps saying, and some on the right, to be honest, okay, the appeasers on the right. It's our support for Israel. If we just didn't support Israel, then none of this would be happening. No, you don't understand. The Muslims are just doing this as a backlash to our support for Israel and in solidarity with the Palestinians. Really? Okay. Australia has a liberal left government, woke to the gills. You don't get more woke than Albanese, the prime minister. Virulently anti-Israel. Virulently pro-Palestinian. So what did Australia do? Okay, you don't like that one. France has recognized an independent Palestinian state. Okay, the Germans. What, you think Deutschland is pro-Israel? Are you on drugs? They've been calling for an independent Palestinian state for decades. They've allowed in millions of Muslims. They put them on welfare. They coddle them. They take care of them. You're going to tell me that Germany is somehow anti-Muslim? If you want, I can go country after country after country. So the Europeans are anti-Israel. Australia is anti-Israel. Yet that doesn't stop all these terrorist attacks. So, if it's not that, and it's clearly not that, then what is it? Well, why don't we let the people from the region tell us? Because the people from the region, overwhelmingly Christian, who are persecuted by these Islamists, or moderate Muslims, meaning they're cultural Muslims, but they're not really deep believers, almost like secular Muslims. They may not drink wine, they may not eat pork, but they don't go to the mosque, they don't pray, they don't do 6 times a day, they don't do Allah, 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 Allah at 4 a.m. They're not into that. And they're considered apostates. So, this is what they tell us. That there's something within Islam that has gone on for 1,500 years. It is fundamentally incompatible with Western civilization. With Europe, with the United States, with Australia. They don't want to assimilate. In fact, they hate us for existing. And for them, it is a perpetual, ceaseless war, a clash of civilizations. By the way, thousands of imams say this openly, brazenly. They didn't even hide it. In mosques, in Pakistan, in Afghanistan, in Egypt, in Iran, I could go on and on, in country after country after country, including all across Europe, Western Europe, all across the United States, Canada, and Australia. And the Australian government has tolerated and appeased this naked anti-Christian, anti-Semitic, Islamic extremism to the point that it's now led to what happened at Bondi Beach in Sydney. The day after October 7th, the day after, not 6 months, not a year, no. Israel was still recovering the dead bodies. Sydney had one of the biggest anti-Semitic demonstrations in the world. Thousands poured onto the streets in solidarity with Hamas. So let me ask you, is it the guns or is it radical Islam? And is it time now for a moratorium on immigration from all Muslim countries? 617-266-6868. Agree, disagree? David in Beverly. Thanks for holding, David, and welcome.
Hey, Jeff. Long time no see. How you been?
Good. How are you, David?
I'm calling. I was trying to get in last week because I wanted to get in on that subject, but I do believe we should have a moratorium on the infidels. But I was trying to call you because I was at a meal one time, and you had all these people that had bad experiences with their meals. But I had a very wild Thanksgiving dinner where I went up against a liberal, and they were giving me so much trouble. And they went into another room, and I thought they were going to bring their sons in, these big, giant sons, to kick the crap out of me. Well, it turned out she left the room after our argument and went into the room with her husband, with the sons and everything. And I thought they were going to kill me. But instead, she runs out of the room, goes to her car, and leaves. And the sons came in the room, and they said, "Who's the guy that chased her away?" And I said, I did it. I apologize. He goes, and they asked me if I could come by for Christmas and the rest of the holidays.
So they wanted that woman out.
So I knew you had to hear that. I tried last week to get in, but everybody had so much. But to get back onto the other subject, I really feel terrible about what happened at that school. This Islam stuff is just getting really too crazy. Trump is right. It has to end now, or we're going to lose our country, just like Australia. France is gone. I mean, look at all the stuff on television. It's just getting bad. We're going to lose America if we don't start now.
Well, what's going to happen, David, is we're going to become France or Germany or England, or much of Western Europe, and now, I hate to say it, Australia. And that's what Trump is warning us. He's saying, look, we're going to hit a critical tipping point. And after a while, it's the numbers. When they grow beyond a certain, whatever it is, 10%, 15%, they become so deeply embedded and entrenched, it changes your whole way of life. And so, I mean, again, I don't want to harp on this, but it's hard for Americans to imagine this, but like I've been to Europe a few times during Christmas season. People wouldn't believe this because they think, well, Europeans are more secular. Yes and no. They make a much bigger deal out of Christmas than we do. I mean, it's like a 6-week event, trees everywhere, decorations everywhere, Christmas music everywhere. How do I say this? Church bells ringing all the time. They have these stunning, beautiful Christmas markets. It's in practically every European country. there's just such a festivity. You really, when you're there, you're like, oh, it's Christmas. Like Europe, as they say, was the cradle of Christendom, right, for thousands of years. So you really feel the deep heritage and roots of Christianity in Europe, whether it's Catholicism or Protestantism or Orthodox Christianity, it doesn't matter. Whatever, Catholic, Protestant, Orthodox Christian, you can feel it. It's something that's inside of them for, 1,500 years. For them now to be canceling these Christmas markets everywhere because they're petrified of terrorist attacks, for them to be canceling even church services, for them to be saying, no, don't put up any Christmas displays because that sets them off. Like in the name of public safety. You're not just de-Christianizing Europe, which is huge. It's almost like it's a civilizational crisis. You're destroying your own heritage. And Islam is filling the vacuum. And you have to ask yourself, but why? If you're going to let them in, you tell them clearly, you have to assimilate to our way of life. And if you don't want to assimilate to our way of life, at the bare minimum, don't attack our way of life. But that's what they do. Now, I'm going to be brutally honest with you. I think Europe is lost. Western Europe, not Central Eastern Europe. But I think Western Europe is lost. It breaks my heart to say this. And look, I will defend Nigel Farage or Marine Le Pen or the Alternative for Deutschland, AfD in Germany, Giorgia Meloni in Italy. The populist right is rising, or Geert Wilders in the Netherlands. If they want to fight for their culture and their civilization and their heritage, I will back them all the way. But I'm looking at this and I'm like, I think you just let in too many. I think that's your problem. I think Australia now is gone. And my advice to the Jews, it is 120,000 Australian Jews. My honest to goodness advice, like I'm in the confessional, if you can, get out of Australia. It's not going to get better. It's going to get worse. If you're living in France and you're Jewish, get out. Germany, get out. Britain, get out. And many of them are telling pollsters they don't feel safe. They don't feel safe in Australia. They don't feel safe in Canada. They don't feel safe in Western Europe. So the question is, do they come here or do they go to Israel? I don't want us to become like Western Europe and Australia and Canada. And Trump is right. We're at a tipping point. And we have to speak truth to power. And I believe that's why the media and Brown University are covering up what happened Saturday in that mass shooting. They don't want the public to know the real nature of radical Islam. Okay, I'm going to go to Jane in Norton, but just before I do, you want to know what is wrong with our political class, with our politicians, especially Democrats? So I want you to, because you're not, if I told you, you wouldn't believe me. You'd say, Jeff, you're obviously exaggerating for dramatic effect. Okay. Now remember, Chuck Schumer is Jewish. Okay? He's Jewish. He claims to be a practicing, devout Jew. That's what he says. And he says he's very proud of his Jewish ancestry, which he should be. In the wake of the pogrom, of the massacre of Jews in Australia, he delivers a press conference on the Australia shooting. But these are the first words out of his mouth. You gotta hear it to believe it. Roll cut 24A. Mike.
And of course, I'm going to say a few words about the terrible shooting in Sydney, Australia. Okay? So, and first, of course, as I always say, no matter what, go Bills. They beat the Patriots today. It's a big deal.
I don't know what to say. Go Bills? They beat the Patriots? Who cares? Look, I understand it was a big game, an important game, blah, 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 blah. You're going to go Bills? You've got 15 dead, 40 injured in one of the worst anti-Semitic terrorist atrocities in the last, 50 years? The Jewish community literally under siege? The Jewish community in utter panic and living in terror? The scourge of anti-Semitism that is reminding many people of the barbarism of the 1930s? And go Bills! Go Bills! Now, either it's a la Joe Biden, which is Sandy's theory, that it's dementia is starting to kick in. He's getting, as they say, soft in the head, okay? The filter is gone and the cognitive decline is getting obvious, okay? Either it's door one or door two, he's a sociopath. Like he's got no soul, no conscience, no morality. It's all fake. It's always been fake. Now, I don't care. Door one or door two. Chuck, Chuck U. Schumer. It's time to retire. 617-266-6868. Go Bills. Just when we had the Boston Marathon bombing, and if you can remember that, 12 years ago, and as you know, I was on the air round the clock. Okay, and we're not talking 15 dead, 40 injured. It was bad. Please, I'm not trying to, diminish it. But it wasn't that scale of an atrocity. Can you imagine if I went on the air, and I'm not even a senator. I'm not a political leader. And I go Pats. Before we even talk about anything, go Patriots. Go Pats. The whole city, including this audience, would run me out of Boston on a rail. Like, buddy, the elevator doesn't go to the top. There's something wrong with you, man. You got dead bodies everywhere, and you think it's funny? You think this is a time to crack jokes? And notice, nobody laughed. Okay? Even the sycophantic press corps, they're looking at each other like, whoa. Whoa, 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 whoa. 617, wee-oo. Jane in Norton. Thanks for holding, Jane, and welcome. Hi, Jane. Go ahead.
I'm calling about Brown. I was not surprised by it at all. I've worked in higher ed at 3 different colleges in this state for over 30 years. The last college I worked at up until last year was a college in Norton, Mass. I'm a third shift custodian, and my building had at least 30 cameras inside on all 3 floors. But it also had a problem where, the automatic locks would go on. They'd unlock the building at 6 o'clock, and then the automatic locks would lock the building at 11. So that building was wide open all day long. And that's the premise. That's the reason I called, is that these colleges and their presidents are creating open targets for these whack jobs. Okay? We have the president, I'm going to say the college because you know who I'm talking about, Wheaton College.
Yes.
They fired their police, all of them, when she first got hired, because they wanted a union. They fired all of them. We only have 2 public safety people here, and they're security people. They don't carry guns. They don't. There's no safety here. all these buildings here are open. You know?
That's criminal.
And
I'm telling you, that's borderline criminal.
That's what
Jane, I promise I won't cut you off. I'll give you all the time. But so you mean to tell me at Wheaton College, and not to pick on Wheaton College, because, hey, look, this is Moonbat, Massachusetts, okay? So I'm sure this goes on in many campuses. With the threats of school shootings, they've only got 2 resource officers, whatever, security guards, they're not even actual police, and both of them are unarmed? So essentially, Wheaton College is a gun-free zone? Am I correct in this, Jane?
you are. Yes, you are.
I mean, just
And
why
I
don't
was
they just paint the
lucky.
target? No, really, just paint the massive target. You know, and just tell these shooters, come on down. Come on down. It's easy pickings. Jane, does some of this have to do with the culture, the far left anti-police culture at universities? They hate the police. They were all in on Black Lives Matter. They want to defund the police. The police are racist. The police are bad. The criminals are good. They're all oppressed. They're misunderstood. Do you think that's part of it?
And I'm telling you, even as a custodian working third shift, I had kids roaming through my building. I don't know how the hell they got in my building after hours, but they did. And I worked alone. And thank God I had 2 other guys that cleaned other buildings on my shift. But, I mean, you're always watching your back. You're always watching your back. That place was not safe. And I think people should realize this is the same at all. I'm not going to say all colleges. I'm not going to blanket that.
Many colleges. You're right. No, many colleges.
No, I will state I worked at Stonehill College for quite a few years, and their campus police are armed. They are ex-police officers. They are military guys, retired. These guys are packing, and there's got to be a dozen of them over there. And they have gates. You can't get in with, that is a safe campus.
Bingo.
This campus, Wheaton campus, is asking for trouble. And I'm not blasting them just because I don't work there anymore. I'm just blasting them because these poor kids over there don't have security.
I agree with you.
They're
being negligent. They're being irresponsible and negligent. And Jane, just to bring it full circle, that's exactly what happened at Brown. That's exactly what happened at Brown. And for the life of me, I mean, you're making such a common sense point, Jane, an obvious common sense point. How come liberals can't talk like this? How come they can't just say, well, whoa, how come there weren't police officers on campus? How come there wasn't security in the building? How come we don't have cops that are armed? How come we don't have, allegedly, surveillance videos inside the building? This is insane. How come the door was completely unlocked and left wide open? Like, just basic security precautions. Mike in Winchendon. Thanks for holding, Mike, and welcome.
How are you today?
I'm good. How are you, Mike?
All right. Listen, last week, Chelsea Gabbard was on one of the stations, and she said that there's, upwards, 80,000 terrorists that they know of that come over the border. Now, my question is, the gutaways, we get 2 million gutaways. If those people that came over the gutaways, if 10% of them are bad, that's 200,000. You could have hundreds of thousands of jihadis in here. And I'm telling you, political Islam is at war with the United States of America. They hate you, and they were out to destroy this country. And the crazy bastards don't understand that. They don't want to face the fact. And you know what the proof of this is? Last week, the FBI and others had this raid on this building, okay? It was called Operation Northern Breaker. and they found out that it was in the Midwest. It was a multi-state operation. They arrested 28 Somali truck drivers, okay? And they were loaded with drugs, guns, and they started to talk about bomb-making materials and stuff like that. Now, as my experience in the war in Vietnam, okay, I'm telling you that if you got that many terrorists in here, don't think for a minute that the logistics to do what they want to do aren't already here. They're here. Because one of the things that we found constantly, okay, were caches of weapons. We found them under buildings, under dung piles. We had them everywhere. You go by a hole in the ground, a cave. They're everywhere. And I will bet you $10,000 million every dime I got that's their goal, is to create such a problem in the United States that we just roll over. And the thing that irritates me a lot is that the answer that some of these folks have in our political system, especially these crazy white liberal women like that nut out in the West Coast, okay, blaming the guns, they want to disarm the American people when they could have 500,000 or more jihadi terrorists in our country right now, okay?
Mike, let me ask you this. You're 1,000% correct. But we're going to do a little bit like the Socratic method, just very briefly, because Socrates said it's one of the best ways to learn is through question and answer. Let's leave out political Islam. Let's leave out radical Islam. Let me just ask you point blank, what is the goal of Islam? What's the ultimate end goal of Islam? It's clearly stated in the Quran. It's clearly stated by the Prophet Muhammad. It's clearly stated by imam after imam after imam. It is their ultimate end goal. What is it, Mike?
To Islamify the world.
A global
you
caliphate.
Will bend
Bingo. That's their term. A global caliphate, which means exactly what you just said. Islamicize the world, or the way I like to phrase it, create a world Muslim empire. Now, that's the goal. It's been the goal for 1,500 years. It's in the Quran. And I don't mean one phrase, in some page. Again and again and again. Now, when I was in Croatia just a couple months ago, Ashton was marveling at all the towers and the castles and the forts and the fortresses. And I'm like, yeah, Ashton, look, by the way, you go to Italy, it's the same thing. You go to the Czech Republic, you go to Hungary, you go to Poland, you go to Serbia, you go to all these countries in Central Eastern Europe, okay? Bulgaria, Romania, beautiful forts, historic castles. But then you just ask, well, why were they built? Like, this is like 1,000 years old. You're looking at stuff that's 1,200 years old, 800 years old, 1,000 years old. Why? 99% of the time, well, the Ottoman Turks are invading. Well, that was another attempt by Islam to expand into Europe or into the Balkans or into Central Europe. Again and again and again and again. So what's happening now is part of a larger pattern that's been going on for 1,500 years, except we now have airplanes. And we have, big boats, and so it's easier to travel and it's easier to get around the world. But that's the only difference. So, Mike, you're completely right. And liberals are burying their heads in the sand. If they think that's somehow, well, let's just disarm the American people and that's going to solve the problem. Ask the Australians. Here, ask those poor Australian Jews. They were all disarmed. And, boy, did them a lot of good. So, I'm with you all the way. But we have to have the courage of our convictions to speak the truth. There is a woman now, and I want to congratulate her, because it takes a lot of guts. She's now on social media in Australia, and she's putting her life in danger, but she's challenging the Australian government, saying, you have blood on your hands.